kind of been through a rough patch. Our previous administrator, we were kind of a stepping stone on his resume. He was let go, and gosh, 3 months later, our physician quit. The first 2 or 3 months was, people were scared. Most people, where they would choose to live, they want some form of health care.
We had heard on the scanner that the ambulance had been called to Joanne's restaurant on the highway for an elderly female that wasn't responding and possibly not breathing. We knew there would be a delay of 20 minutes. So we took off on foot. We did get there and find the lady totally unresponsive, collapsed in the restaurant in the booth. We got her down on the floor and we proceeded to check for breathing and heartbeat. We couldn't get a heartbeat, and everybody just thought, well, we'll wait on the ambulance and that'll take care of it. If you don't start CPR within 3 or 4 minutes after the patient goes down, then sometimes the outcome is not good. Start performing CPR in the restaurant, and by the time the ambulance had gotten here, she had come around and she was lying there visiting with us. About 2 weeks later, I went down to the pizza place downtown, and the lady herself saw me and motioned for me. I went over and she hugged me, kissed me, and thanked me. And I've known her the 35 years I've lived here, and she was extremely happy. She said, "I'm so glad that you and your buddy came over to help me."
It was to the point that each week the assistant administrator and myself sat down and decided what bills we could pay, and the debt continued to accumulate. We had a new management team in place, and we went from 67 employees to 37. We have a very dedicated staff. We've had a raise freeze for 3 years, and we've got folks that have not had raises in 4 years. They just continue to do their job. And I think people really rallied behind us and tried to help us, show us support. We have a positive future. We have a full-service lab, full-service physical therapy, home health, podiatrists, orthopedic surgeon, chiropractor, and wound care specialists. So we've tried harder to reach out to the entire county, and I really feel like we're supported by 98% of the county.
I think the highest enrollment in Stafford has been 315. That's in the last 17 years. And right now we're about 270. We, like any school, don't know if it will be consolidated in the future. The idea being, if I'm going to be the superintendent here and the school is going to thrive, then obviously the community is going to have to thrive. And so I did a lot of focus groups, study, analysis, data gathering of surveys, one-on-one qualitative kinds of study, and talked to community members as well as school-age students, and came up with several different conclusions. But one of them was, do we have to die? That wasn't a question per se, but that's my thought process. Do we have to die, or can we choose to move on and do the best that we can? And my biggest hope came when I talked to the high school age students, because they're at an age where they're starting to think about what comes next. And so I'd say, well, would you ever consider moving to Stafford, or a place the size of Stafford, when you are done with whatever comes next? By the time you go to college or go to the big city, and then you want to raise a family, would you think about coming back to a town like Stafford? And I had very good response to that, and that was very heartening to me. They said, well, what would we do though if we came back? Yeah, so to me, that was a challenge. What are they going to do if they come back? And so that was kind of the nexus of this idea.
Encourage students to learn about starting their own business, to work in the community, to learn about having a business in a small town, volunteering in the community, and hopefully coming back and starting a business here or being a good employee, having those skills later.
I think a good example of a person that we have right now, we have a young lady who's been in this program for 2 years. Somebody asked her, she said, "What are you going to do this when you graduate?" She goes, "Oh no, I'm going to be a hairstylist." But I want to have my own salon. So when I get my training to be a hairstylist, I'll be able to know how to set up my own business, how to write a business plan, how to go to the bank and pay taxes and all the things that I'll need to know to be a small business owner. And I think that's something else that is important with the Seed Center. They may not do these particular things, but they will have the knowledge that most high school students wouldn't have.
Community is very supportive. Chamber of Commerce, they ask us to do quite a bit as far as brochures. We did a historic tour. The schools also asks us to do a lot. We do the teacher nameplates or signage. We do the handbooks for the school. So anything that the students may be able to do, rather than outsource it, they'll hire the students to do some of that work. And it makes the students, it helps their confidence to know that, I'm doing this for the community, and they try to do a good job. It's different to me than handing in homework. If you have a product you have to give someone, you want to make sure that it looks nice and that it's due on time.
The community support has been tremendous. The first year we started and we got permission from the state to have a charter school, we were not allowed any money, none. So this building belongs to a community member. We don't pay rent on it. Called, any business we could think of that, do you have some desks? Do you have, anything that we could think of to get going with it? So, actually our original floor even was not this floor. The Methodist church was going to get new carpet in their basement, so they ripped up, so the Methodist men ripped up the carpet from the basement of the church and brought it over here and carpeted this floor just so that we would have something okay.
Start a new pathway. It'll be travel and tourism, hospitality, restaurant and event management. So the FACS department will partner with us, and Stafford County Flour Mill will be a big partner, Stafford County Farm Bureau, Chamber of Commerce here in town, Elroy's Pizza, Joanne's, a lot of our local people, the State Restaurant and Hotel Management Association. And what we're going to do is we hope the students can research and develop mixes made from Stafford County wheat, Hudson cream flour, and the meal, we would ask them to help us produce those, and the students would market those, and so hopefully it would be a self-sustaining project.
For a small school, we do have a lot of what we call career and tech ed classes, used to be called vocational. One of the ones that I think makes the most sense when you explain this and how it works in the future is a health science program. And we do have one in Stafford. Students enroll in health sciences 1, 2, 3, and 4. At the beginning, they start in an exploratory way. I mean, oh my gosh, I don't have to be a doctor or a nurse. I can be an assistant. I can be a CNA. I can be a doctor. I can be a physical therapist. I can be a veterinarian. I can be anything in between all these things. And so they do a lot of exploration, and then they start to close it in a little bit more. And they do, of course, with a lot of interest inventories and visits and so on and so forth. But then they, after that, then they hone in on what it is they think they want to do. And it may not be a direct path. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say a person wants to be a registered nurse, and that's their ultimate goal, but they obviously are going to have to go to school in order to do that. Well, with the price of school and situations as they normally are, you're going to have at least a part-time job to go through school. So doesn't it make sense that you would get a job that is working toward information in your career as opposed to maybe a fast food job. Any example, but as opposed to that. So when these students graduate here, they will have a certificate from Stafford High School going into a health-related career. They will have a certificate in any number of certified things in order to have a better job. They could be a CNA, they could be a CMA. We have several phlebotomists that have graduated and will continue to graduate. Those are the main ones right now, but those are jobs that they could get that are a lot better paying, and again put them in the environment in which they're going to be, and propel them forward.
You lose a business here on Main Street and no cars, so it gets pretty depressing. There's nothing here. I mean, after Duckwall's moved or closed their doors, I mean, our closest shopping was 20 miles away. There were citizens running around with petitions, and they hand-delivered them to Abilene, you know, to the ALCO headquarters. And I forget, it was like 745 people had signed this, "Please don't close." And well, you know how corporate works, you know, if your profit margins aren't there, obviously you're going to shut the door. When they were closing, they offered the fixtures and stuff. Well, the board says we have no idea how to run a store, you know, and we don't want to run a store. So it sat here for almost 2 years. You know, taxes are still going on and expenses, and said we got to do something. So had some community meetings saying, okay, you know, this is what we're proposing. Are you interested? And most of the people were interested. It was a 1928 soda fountain, which was down originally in Smart Drug, which is just south of here a little bit. And then it was sold at auction probably 15 years ago, and it's been up in Sterling in storage. So we got wind that it was still in storage, so we were able, so the soda fountains came home. One of the ladies who in high school worked the soda fountain when it was in existence at the drugstore. She envisions this is where old and young come together, and which I think is neat, to get, you know, the younger people to communicate with the older. The few times I've been here after school, there's several kids that come in and get ice cream, because, you know, who can be mad when they're eating ice cream? You know, all the troubles go away. The refreshing thing is now that since we've opened here and we have a restaurant next door, we're getting several cars on Main Street now. It makes people feel good, especially in the evening when the streets are dark. At least we have a couple of businesses now that have their lights on. So, you know, there's a possibility that maybe somebody else will think, hey, you know, we can open a business here and survive. So I think it's going to be hopefully our anticipation, our goals is to get a snowball effect. You know, start with one, go with two, maybe a third one. I think we may have gotten on the first rung or maybe the second rung of the ladder. It's still going to take a lot of work. It's still going to take a lot of community effort.
Mr. President, thank you. In my home state of Kansas, there are hundreds of small communities that line the highways and county roads that stretch across the prairie part of the country. In many of these towns, the populations are shrinking, but they are still called home by thousands of Kansans. I grew up in one of those small communities out in western Kansas, a place where folks know their neighbors and they try to take care of them. Much of what I know about people, about human nature, is what I learned by growing up in a small town where we all knew each other. I worked at the local hardware store and swimming pool, the drugstore, had a paper route, and got to meet almost everybody in my hometown. In these small communities across America, the people there, they work hard, they come together to find common sense solutions, they solve problems, they try to make a difference in the life of their families and the community. They also strive to provide a better future for their kids so that every child has the opportunity to grow up, pursue the American dream, and reach their goals. For rural communities to survive and prosper, citizens have to work together to create their own opportunities for success. What happens here in Washington, D.C. has a huge consequence upon the future of rural communities in my state. But the reality is those communities that are going to have a bright future are those who decide on their own to work together within that community to make certain that that's the case. An example of a community that rallied together in a way to make good things happen and make the community better for the future is the community of Stafford. Population 1,042. And I'd like to recognize the efforts by this community, the Stafford residents, with a Building a Better Community Award. They made the effort to preserve their town for another generation. Rural communities across our state have been hit hard by the economic downturn over the last few years, and many towns have encountered the closing of businesses. Main Street looks a lot less appealing, a shortage of healthcare services, a younger generation that's leaving home in search for employment. In light of these challenges, the community leaders of Stafford are taking steps to secure that town's future. We have a chain of retail stores across our state called Duck Walls. Well, 2 years ago, they announced that they were closing 20 of their stores across Kansas, and the residents of Stafford were left to drive more than 20 miles to do their routine shopping. So, what happens in a community like Stafford? The community leaders gathered together, they raised the funds to open and operate a new store, a general store on Main Street called Stafford Mercantile. One of the things that makes this shop unique is it's owned by the community, and it features a lot of Stafford's history, including a 1928 soda fountain and the marble top counter. In fact, one local resident, Judy Mays, brought her mother to that store to have ice cream from the same fountain used at their wedding reception in 1934. The new shop brings back fond memories of the past, but also now brings a future for younger folks in Stafford to enjoy a store, a mercantile, and a soda fountain. The mercantile has made it possible that once again residents can see what can happen when they work together, and they can now shop at home. Another challenge Stafford faced was the likelihood that its local hospital would have to close its doors after more than 50 years of serving that community. Due to the pressures of declining population, Medicare reimbursement rates, the difficult financial circumstances that most hospitals across Kansas now face. Access to health care services and hospitals is vital to the survival of a community. If you can't access health care in communities across my state, it's one more circumstance that causes the likelihood that senior citizens reluctantly move away to someplace where there is a doctor and a hospital, and young families won't take the risk of raising their families without access to that health care. But with more than $500,000 in debt, it seemed like other than closing the hospital, there was no option for Stafford. But rather than throwing in the towel and giving up, the hospital got new leadership. They sought help from the folks in the county, and they worked hard to make ends meet so the hospital doors could remain open and continue that long tradition of serving the residents of Stafford County. Many rural communities often struggle to add younger generation of residents to their workforce, given the lack of job opportunities. The superintendent of the local school district, Mary Jo Taylor, recognized this challenge in her community, and she decided to do something about it. With the support of the leadership of the community, the citizens, the business community of the town, and the support of local teacher Natalie Clark, Stafford Entrepreneurship and Economic Development Center was created at Stafford High School in 2003. The goal of this center is to equip high school sophomores, juniors, and seniors with the training needed to become successful entrepreneurs. Who better to start a business in their hometown than a young person who grew up there, who is now educated and trained and has a desire for entrepreneurship, more likely that person than probably anyone else. By learning what it takes to develop and manage a small business, young people gain those valuable skills that open doors for a wide range of future employment opportunities, and most importantly, the opportunity to create a business at home. As part of that learning experience, local store owners hire those students and give them hands-on experience in managing their own business. Those skills are important as those students leave high school and will enable them to create those jobs that the community of Stafford so desperately needs. These are only a few examples of how the community of Stafford worked together to revitalize their community and pave the way for its future. Carolyn Dunn, the Stafford County Economic Development Director, summed it up this way when she said, "Stafford is proving that when communities look within themselves for growth, they do have the capability to forge a stronger, more positive future." The community of Stafford is a success story. It's a role model. It demonstrates how teamwork and creative thinking, how caring about the future of your community can make a positive difference for that community and for all of rural America. I'm proud to recognize the efforts of Stafford with what we've called Building a Better Community Award. And today here in the United States Senate, I offer my congratulations and gratitude for the kind of leadership and effort among all residents of the community to see that Stafford is a good place to live today, and perhaps even more importantly, a great place to live tomorrow.